friends. I'm Sadie Young, the owner here at Spectra Spectra Art Space, which is a gallery, studio, and event space here in Denver, Colorado, on South Broadway. And we are about to get started with our second episode of Spectra in Your Studio. So every Friday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we're going to go live right here on our Instagram at Spectra Art Space and interview different artists and creatives. And I'll be asking them about what they're working on, if they have some advice for all of us, and more. So today I'm really excited about our guest. He's a mural, oil, and acrylic painter. He's an illustrator, world traveler, brother, clothing designer, and writer. His name is on Instagram, Omega1, and his actual name is Gabriel Welch. So we'll just wait for him to come in here and we will get going. Hi, Felipe. How are you? Hi, C. How are you guys? Hello, everyone. Yay, C, you're working on your art prompt. I'm so excited. This is going to be a good one. There he is. Hi.
Oh.
We did it.
Yeah, we made it. I didn't know how this worked.
It's all right. It's a new thing. It's different, right?
Yeah. I've never done this before.
I know. I hadn't before last week. So it's good. Can you? Is that me? All right. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're a little bit
Okay.
pixelated, but I see you.
You see me? Okay, good.
I see you.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
On something.
I got a lot of things going on, but doing good.
Nice. Good. Sorry, there's
Yeah.
like feedback that I hear from. I'm like hearing myself.
Oh,
It's
no.
weird. I know,
That's the worst.
but
Hearing your own voice back in your own ears. Sadie
Yeah.
Inception.
how would somebody get? Yeah, Sadie Inception, right? Okay, so you're doing good with everything that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to the store to go get stuff, and there's a long line of people outside waiting with masks on, and I just was like, no, I'll just come back tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah,
But-
it's crazy out there, probably.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think it's really crazy yet. I think it's kind of like we're preparing for it to get crazy. I don't think there's really a lot of cases in California yet, but who knows?
right,
It's not like
So- right. So you are in California, which was the first state to issue a statewide shelter-in-place order. How long have you been on lockdown?
I've been on lockdown for like the last 15 years, but
15. That was a good answer.
state mandate put it locked down, so I don't know. Maybe the last few weeks.
So this
I was kind of on
new
lockdown
stuff
before
hasn't
this
affected your.
happened. What?
Has this one affected your daily flow at all?
The only thing it affected was going to get coffee in the morning at Starbucks.
That's good.
Is that better?
Let me see. Oh,
Lower
yeah,
the
that's
volume?
much better. Yeah,
Yeah?
can you go a little lower?
More lower?
As long as you can hear
Better?
me. I think it's the feedback.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool.
Can you hear me?
Thank you so much. I can. And I'm not
Okay.
hearing my feedback as much. Is that better for everyone else who's watching? Heart if it's better. Mine is loopy? Yeah.
Now
Not
yours
better.
is all loopy.
It sounds better to me.
Yeah, but you look a lot clearer. You're less pixelated now.
That's good. Okay, yeah. Sorry, guys. Bear with us. Thank you for being patient. This is the first live feed I've been trying to do from my own studio at my house instead of driving to Spectra because it's like 30 minutes
Right.
away. So thanks for bearing with us, guys. Hi,
Yay.
Julie. Okay, so back
Okay.
to the questions. So what have you been working on art-wise? And could you show us around your studio really quick?
Yeah, I'll take you
Awesome.
off of this. I've been working a lot in oils recently.
I love
So,
that.
um, let's see. This is an older painting that I'm working with oils right now. It's like a sunken San Francisco. You can see like San Francisco buildings. Look over here, you see like a submarine. And
Cool.
up here, like a submarine shark. There's the macro view of it, though.
Oh, it looks awesome. And you've been going over, so you started that one in acrylics and you've been going over it with oils?
Yeah, I'll go over them with oils. Like this one I started with oils, and I'm finishing it with oils.
Ooh, pretty.
Yeah, working on some figurative stuff. Working on this is a landscape painting of, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it. I
Yeah,
can see
okay.
it.
There's a little desert rover. Yeah, I had a friend that worked at NASA, and she was part of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and she was really into Mars and was going to go to Mars. So she's been paying this painting off for like 5 years, and she finally paid it off. But now I'm putting the finishing touches on it for her.
Nice. That's awesome.
You could see a stack of paintings up there. This is spray paint. This is the oil paints. These are all Nova colors. Up there you'll see a bunch of canvases up there. And then I got this setup here where I do like lots of little paintings, like some coffee, a lion, a little mini dark piece.
I feel like you always have so many projects going on. It's so cool. I love it. I don't know many other artists who have a studio that has that many ideas going on. I love it. It's so cool. Do you guys think it's cool? I feel like they think it's cool. I'm gonna let my dog out of my room.
So yeah, there's a lot of paintings around here.
That's super cool. So,
oh, look what I just got too. I got these little 6x6 inch wood panels, little 4x4. So these are all. This is going to be like a new wood series. This is like a. Let's see. I don't know if you can see this one. It's like a little mini deep.
There it is. Oh, cool. Yeah. And you're going to do a whole series of small ones?
Yeah, so these are like some little tiny panels that I'm going to be doing. Like little 4x4 inch wood panels, but they're like gallery style. So yeah, I got really a whole bunch of those ordered from Blick. So yeah, I'm going to be doing like a wooden series. Yeah, doing a lot of different styles and series. I think that it's really advantageous to like work and study all the different styles throughout history, like surrealism, pop art, comic books, graffiti, figurative work, landscapes, and when you work and practice Art Nouveau, then you can incorporate Art Nouveau into landscapes. You studied the ocean, so you can mix ocean with Art Nouveau with graffiti, and you could take out elements and just do fairies with oils and do like a fantasy piece, But But I like not really being limited or boxed into like, this is who you are. You're this graffiti artist, or you're the comic book guy, or you're the visionary guy. And I think a lot of artists kind of put themselves in a box and just kind of stay in their lane. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people say that you're supposed to stay in your lane, like stay in your lane. And I think that what if you had many lanes and you could just drive across this 20 lane freeway at all times? You don't have a one lane, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I've always really liked that about you and your art. Like, even though like you would be showing in what people would consider like a visionary show or a visionary gallery, like you always kind of like I never felt like you were in one
yeah.
box. That's why when I did my intro for you, I was like, he's all these things. It's so cool, you know? And it's not like one style, but you kind of know, like you can kind of see you through it still, even
Yeah.
though you like do cross that bridge with so many different like elements, like ooh, that like reminds me of like graffiti, or that looks kind of
Hmm.
visionary, and then there's a little element of art nouveau. Like you definitely have that. It's really cool.
Yeah. I think it's really, I think that's where your style comes from, is like by studying all the different styles, but by not labeling yourself a certain style. Kind of like Bruce Lee's one of those people that like he studied all the different fighting styles and he came up with his own style, but he was also trying to like get away from being attached to any one style. That way he could flow in and out of any style that he needed for whatever particular situation that arises. So the more styles of art you study, the less box into a style you are. And you're able to collaborate with, you know, companies, different artists. You can go into the graffiti realm, you can go into comic book realm and go to Comic Cons, and you don't have to feel like you're like a visionary artist and you know you're just like doing super spiritual art. I think people kind of get in a cul-de-sac of like they go down this road and they kind of hit a dead end and just keep driving around this one road. Whereas like, why not just completely like rebrand yourself as like an expressive like surrealist, or you could even just do an impressionism painting. And
Mhm.
like, I know my friend Jessica Pearlstein used to be like really into the visionary art world, and then she started doing impressionistic paintings and just like finding the joy in just being a painter and like not being in a box or a bubble of like, oh, I have to do this and this is what's expected of me. So I find that I like to do erotic art too, and it kind of like that's a whole nother genre that like sometimes I don't know if I want it to be part of my Instagram feed, but then I just do it anyway because it's the more liberated I can be, the more liberated people can be through me. They're like, hey, if this guy can just do whatever the fuck he wants, then I can do whatever the fuck I want, and we can all just make whatever art we want to. It's like whatever inspires you. Don't feel like you can't do that or you shouldn't do this or you might lose your audience if you go down this road and like, hey, I thought he was a visionary artist. Why is he doing erotic, nasty pictures now? Or why is he trying to be a graffiti artist? He's not hood or he's not a street artist. And so just kind of like breaking down your own limitations and like always trying to go above your limitations, and then like quilting together like a fabric of all these different styles kind of makes up your style, and then that can be your thread that can like it contains all of you. By having your style in any genre of art, there's still like your your thumbprint is on everything. So anything that I do in any direction will have a thumbprint of like my style on it. And then you don't even need to
Mhm.
sign your work. You just like your style speaks for itself. And the more styles you study, then the more tools you have. At any moment you feel inspired, you just like you know how to do all of it, you know. And
I love that.
yeah.
And because you're able to like do that and you have so many like sources of inspiration, I feel like that's why you kind of are able to be creating so many things at once, or like you do have so many things like in your
Right.
mind to get out because you don't like put yourself in a box that's like restricting. You like let yourself like really enjoy the process. I think that's really cool, and like something that, you know, a lot of artists kind of need to, or not need to, but like that kind of advice would help a lot of artists. Like, it's okay if
Yeah.
you branch out from what you've been doing, or kind of, you know, all that stuff. I love that.
Well, that's what I wonder about, like the Denver art movement, where it's like there's a lot of abstract painters, but they kind of will stick in the abstract lane, and other artists will kind of stick in this like figurative visionary art style lane. And I don't know why artists don't just break away from like being a certain like type of art, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe
Well,
it's
and I
because
think,
like the art world or whatever, like they say that you should do something repetitively enough to where it's like you gain a following by the thing that you do over and over again. And I think people are afraid to lose their audience, so they will stay doing whatever it is that they're doing.
so I'm
What is
gonna
the Denver
just
art
address
movement?
this one. So I think what he was more talking about was like a lot of the people that he knows in Denver, are like that are part of the like festival culture and stuff, like how
Right.
we met each other, like not necessarily the Denver art scene, just like that part of the Denver art
Well,
scene
well,
that
Denver's
we
kind of
met
like a
through.
renaissance community of artists right now. Like a lot of artists went to Denver, and there's a lot of artists in Denver right now, and it's kind of creating an art movement. So I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying that there's a movement of artists, and everybody's come to Denver to kind of like congregate. You know, I've gone out to Denver to work with artists that, you know, I admire and work well with, and like it's really exciting because like San Francisco used to be like that. We all would,
Mm-hmm.
you know, go up to San Francisco and there'd be a bunch of like-minded artists. So there's always going to be like a renaissance of art, and I think that we're kind of in that right now, where it's like there's all this like future cutting edge art, you know, where it's like very like glitchy and inspired by, you know, the future, and we're getting more and more into futurism, and it's very exciting times to be in, you know. The more we move into like artificial intelligence and the idea that perhaps robots can start creating art that's just as good as our art, and what happens when robots start making art that's really good, you know, and they produce it really fast, and they make it really, they make really beautiful paintings. And if they're sentient beings and they can have their own consciousness, what if they start having emotional art that speaks to us? And then, you know, will we like be prejudiced against robot art compared to human art? And I think we're kind of like in that race right now, where like a lot of jobs are becoming automated, and being an artist is one of the last automated jobs that there is, you know. Like I think artists are pretty safe in the fact that robots are not going to replace us like right away, but
At least not in our lifetime. I think artists
yeah.
maybe, I feel like we're good for the ones that would be competing with humans, maybe not though. I don't know.
What about
I'm not a
collaborating with a
scientist.
robot artist? What about a robot artist that can download all the different styles throughout history, and then whatever it wants to create, you know, it's got Van Gogh, it's got Monet, it's got Picasso, whatever artist it wants to tap into, it can like replicate that style, and then you can just you can input like you want a dog painted in this artist style mixed with graffiti artist style mixed with this style, and then this robot replicates it by having a database of styles that it can tap into, and it's got a super automated hand and can just paint anything that you can think of, you know.
So here's a thought on that. So I feel
Yeah.
like whoever was inputting that material for the robot to paint, wouldn't that in essence like be the author in that specific situation, whoever input the data, and then the robot is just like going through the motions? But
Well,
like, because I
at
feel like that
first,
has a lot to do with like what art means, right? It's like the author of the piece and whoever is like whoever sets the intention for whatever they're
mhm.
making, even if it's just to make art to make art. What do you think about that?
um, well,
Or is it still the robot?
I was thinking, I don't know if I even heard that question, but um, I was thinking, what if at first robots just replicated artwork and were replicating styles and putting things out without much emotion? But what if throughout time they started to develop more of an emotional body and started to be able to like fall in love with other machines intelligences, you know, and then they started expressing artworks from their heart space, which, you know,
Okay.
they
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they might develop a real emotional body, and then, you know, who's to say that's different than what we are doing right now? A lot of our art and music is inspired by heartache and love, and without that there wouldn't be as many songs, you know. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what propels us to create art is like the soul wrenching like emotional body that we're in. And what if robots could become, you know, very empathic, and it'd be nice to imagine them like living harmoniously with us, you know. But
Yeah.
I have like two two different like futures that I kind of imagine, and one is like really hopeful and positive and optimistic, and the other is completely dismal and Blade Runner, and like, you know, it's just like it's dark, and I don't really want to think about that world too much, because I want to help set the intentions for the newer beautiful world to come, and I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to like not cave into the fear of the dark world that could come, and I want to like um, be somebody that still believes in like a bright future. You know, like in the 50s, I think the future was like so bright and happy, and like there was Future World, and Disneyland came out with Future World, and like I think we had this idea of the future would be bright and fun and flying cars and everything would be
Like
fast,
the
but
Jetsons.
as we go into the future, it's like it's a scary future because it's very unpredictable, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think we're all experiencing that, like that weird, like realization that like unpredictability is a
Hmm.
huge part of our future, and we're just getting it in a really big dose right now because we don't really know what's going on with this or what it's going to turn into or how it's going to change things, but we're kind of starting to see some of that, and some of it's not all bad, but
Right.
just like as you were talking about all of that, I feel like it's pretty clear that a lot of what you were just talking about is pretty apparent in your work. Like I feel like I see a lot of that process, that like
Yeah.
all those thoughts that you were just sharing with us, which thank you for that. I feel like that
Hmm.
really comes through in your work. That's really cool. It's cool to
Yeah.
hear you talk about it.
I think I'm really inspired by seeing like in cities like Oakland, there will be concrete, and like there'll just be like a tree that just like breaks the concrete open, and this tree just starts to like come out of the concrete. And you think like if we don't if we're not constantly paving things down, like nature is trying to like break its way through our man-made structures. And um, the future I like to envision is like kind of a crumbling, like old dystopia that we used to live in, mixed with more of like the way the Japanese live, where like they like the houses and the pathways to the house and the animals and the nature, it just like flows so seamlessly together that it'd be really cool to see a futuristic world that like fuses like the natural world with like the man-made world, and we start to see more like of those like buildings that are like, you know, gardens that rise up, and like more like roof spaces turned into community gardens for the apartment dwellers to like go up and, you know, plant things and like share produce, and like not have to leave the apartment to go to the marketplace to get so much stuff, but like it's all growing on the outside of the apartment complex, and like apartment complexes aren't so gray and drab anymore. So I
I think
really,
that like I feel like what's kind of happening like just in the world right now, because it's like a world issue and like people not being able to go out and stuff. I feel like that future has a lot more of a fighting chance now
right.
than it did before, because not just like liberals or artists or like the hippies or whatever, not just those
Mhm.
people are like fighting for that anymore. It's like I feel like everyone's going to be like, "Oh, yeah, that would
Yeah.
be really nice."
Yeah, like if we're in a lockdown mode and this could happen a lot more often, this could become the new normal. So just being more self-reliant, especially living in cities and places that like, you know, I think this kind of thing shows us like when things go down and you got to get to the store to get produce and stuff and like it's all gone by the time you get there and there's like a few canned goods left and it's like, wow, this is what happens when people panic and they panic buy and we all start to freak out. Whereas this could be a good start to thinking about how to live, more off grid or communally, and but
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So, um, shall we talk about your comic book? Because I'm kind of excited about this.
yeah,
Comic books. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So,
So comic book.
yesterday.
Let's
Oh
start
yeah, go
in the
ahead.
beginning. When I grew up, my dad he sold comic books at the flea market, and I wake up with him in the morning. We go sell comic books, and I got to see like a lot of comic books growing up, and I just thought, one of my favorite things was the art. Back then, I really wasn't much into like the stories as much as like how cool the art was, and as I've gotten older, now the books I really like to read have really good stories, but they usually have really bad art. Like, it's very rare to find a comic book with a good story and good art fused together. I have found some, and they're really good to read because they're beautiful and they're really thought provoking. So this story is it's kind of a big undertaking, and I don't really know how to find the time to write and draw and ink and illustrate and color like the comics while I'm doing, everything else that I do. But I'm starting to set aside my mornings for drawing and doing comic book work. And then about 12 o'clock or right as soon as afternoon hits, I'll put comic book stuff away and I'll jump into doing commissions or oil painting or whatever else I got to do for the day. But giving comics a fighting chance by setting aside like 3 hours in the morning to do comic stuff, And I think after reading some of Mobius's like thoughts on comics is like I want to start somewhat small and just do like a short story and illustrate it, color it, write the story, and then publish it and see if that can catch any traction and start to like generate enough interest to where maybe that could be a form of income where I don't have to like focus on painting so much and I can focus on comics because I'm supported in comic book work. Whereas right now I don't really feel like I can just drop everything I'm doing and do comics. Even though I want to, I don't know that it's going to become like a monetarily like viable thing to do at the moment. But
So I have two quick
yeah.
questions. Could you tell us what were Mobius was what did Mobius say that provoked what you were just talking about? Did I get his
Um,
name right?
yeah, Mobius. He said a couple things, and it's kind of the dangers of American comics being so like action packed and in your face. And some of his stories are like they're frame by frame, and it's just picture to picture, but it tells the story without any word bubbles. And I like that
Mm.
it helps to like reconstruct my own mind to like think that a comic book doesn't have to be all this action packed like pow fighting you know,
Right.
it can be really soft and deep, and it can take you into big giant worlds, and like the story can be told without much word bubbles if you want, you know. So I like the idea of doing comics in a kind of a different way than what's been done before, and also being able to do comics through lots of different mediums. Like I'm able to like put, you know, graffiti into comics. I'm able to put um, oil painting splash pages. So when you open up a page, it's like it's an oil painting scene. It's not done digitally and like inked and colored in the traditional way. So um, I'm excited to do like this multimedia kind of comic where like frame by frame, like the characters can even like become different frame by frame because it's being told in so many different mediums that like there might be a character you're following, but frame by frame he'll kind of be changing as, you know, as I'm changing, and like it's um, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it come together. Um,
It's so
but
cool. And it's like,
one of the
it's
things
kind
he
of
said
like,
was to not get overwhelmed by, and this is where I think I was at, is I was overwhelmed by the complexity of the story I wanted to tell, and it's so
mhm.
big and grand that it's overwhelming. So I need to kind of like slow down and like think about just doing things like in small little chunks, and like I might tell the story of like this, like the goddess of America, and you know, tell this story, but that story can later on be connected to another story. And then when I talk to a friend, she'll be telling me about this idea about these, you know, um, these like malevolent fucking draconian like kind of beings that like have, you know, people underneath this spell of amnesia, and people forget who they are. And like as she's telling me about this story, I'm like, that would be a great story to tell too, you know. So a lot of my friends and people I talk to have really good stories, but that's kind of it. It's just like a little short kind of story, and I feel like it's a really cool honor to be able to take all these different stories, like my stories, their stories, and weave them all together into a fabric, you know, like a big tapestry of stories. And I don't really have like a definite like beginning and ending, or like sometimes the protagonists are a little vague in my mind.
Mhm.
And I like I like that it's really vague right now, and I'm just gonna kind of like um, just dip my toe in the water and kind of like take it story by story until I get my sea legs, and then I can really ramp it up and like take it full spectrum out into the universe, and like um, you know, build bigger and bigger worlds and more complex characters. And it's going to be told too, and like I like the hero's journey story, like Luke Skywalker. He's like the lone hero, and he goes out into the galaxy. And I think we're kind of entering an age of the collectivist journey, where there's a lot of different heroes that like are battling the same dark malevolent force together. And
Mhm.
the collectivist journey is more of where I think I want the story to be told from, instead of just a solo, you know, I'm the hero and this is the character and it's like me and we're going to go fight all the people and whatever, which I mean, that could be a cool story too to tell within the stories. But um, again, like I think that a lot of people I know are also heroes. So like honoring the heroes and everybody and myself, and like kind of like working
Love that.
together to overcome this like this ugliness that wants to like enslave the world, you know. And I think that's what I've always been fighting against, is like this enslavement. And it'd be fun to like tell this story, and then to get people thinking about working together to overcome the darkness that wants to like suffocate the light in us.
That
So yeah, that's a little bit of like the story concept and rundown, but I'll keep the rest vague because I don't really want to dive too much into it right now. But
No,
yeah,
that's okay. It was just an exciting moment, and I was like, this is new and cool. We should hear about this. I think that was totally worth hearing
yeah,
about. I think everyone is very excited about everything you were just talking about. It's cool. It's a really cool concept. I like all of the things that you just talked about. And however those converge to make this or the first one or the short one or whatever, like
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Sweet.
So,
Me too.
yeah. Um, cool. Well, I feel like okay. So, I have a question. I've noticed in
Yeah.
my time being your friend and talking to you about your art, and as we've heard today, and just now especially, for you, life seems to inform art a lot. Do you think that's the
Mhm.
case with your art? Seems
Um,
like life informing art, the
I think
creation of
so.
it.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. I
Do you ever go ahead?
well, I try not to like become like a newscaster with my art where like, oh
Mm,
shit, the virus is going down. I should paint something about that. Or, I mean, I
right.
kind of do like, the Australia fires, like I felt kind of called to like do something to help, when the world's in crisis. But like right now, I don't really feel like painting virus paintings or like,
Yeah.
I kind of want to stray away from it. So sometimes I will be directly involved with like what's going on in the world, but um, also I think I get kind of like more lost in like what the future is going to be and like creating,
Mm,
futurist like um, ideas of like where we're going and like maybe how that's going to go down. But yeah, right now I feel kind of like I don't really want to like make too much art about what's going on because it's like I don't know. I'm going through it too, like everyone's kind of going through it
right.
together. So
Which totally makes
uh,
sense. And
yeah.
I think where I've seen like life informing art just when we've talked in the past and stuff is like you told me a story from like a dream that you had or like somebody that you dated and that like informed a piece and stuff like that, not necessarily the world's
Oh,
life but
okay,
like
yeah.
your life.
I thought you meant big world events.
No, 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 like your life informing your art. And
Okay,
there's
yeah.
world events that inspire other people's art, but for you, your life inspiring your art.
Definitely. I think that I use art to heal a lot of wounds that I feel.
Mm.
Some lovers have become very like villainous characters that come through my art, and then I've actually taken like a painting that I did of somebody that like really hurt me, and it was dark and it was vicious and evil, and then I was able to like over the years kind of like paint a little bit over it one year, and then maybe 6 months later like I add a little bit more to it, and I healed the painting. It went from this dark, vicious
Mm.
queen to like I put the face back together and I brought butterflies and like cocoons because I was going into a cocoon state. So like a lot of paintings I'll work on for years and they'll kind of like be the story of like what I'm going through and how I'm healing a certain wound. And so I'll heal something and then I'll put it away for like 6 months or a year. And then when I come back to it, I'm like, oh wow, you know what? I see that this was a beautiful thing. And I went into a cocoon state and I was in a very dark place, but now I'm becoming the light again. And then I'll start bringing that painting from like extreme darkness to like extreme light. And it's nice to see that in certain paintings, even with that painting of like the ocean, like that was a pretty grim futuristic worldview of like the ocean levels rising and San Francisco, going underneath the ocean and parts of America being sold out to other countries to pay back past debts or something, because like in the 70s we went from a very industrialized country that was producing a lot to like a consumerist country, and I think we're kind of reaching the end of that where like we can't keep going on like living the way we have just being consumerist country. Like we're going to have to
Mm.
go back to being more of an industrious country that creates something. And I think you'll see right now that like a lot of the the creators are really coming out and stepping forward, and like this could be the time that like we reshape like what America produces, and like there's a lot of beauty here in this country, and I think the more that we work together in a collectivist journey sort of sense, the bigger changes we can have. And you know, learning from like the disco era and the 60s where we got lost in LSD and partying, like I think it's a really good time to like shift our focus from that mindless like self-indulgence and like just losing our minds in our own little world, and becoming more connected and more kind of like sober. I would even say like I've had to like stop doing drugs and drinking alcohol to like get to where I'm at now. You know, I've gone a couple years now without doing any drugs or drinking, and I've watched my life completely change from like a downward spiral to like I was just losing my shit from festival to festival. I was way out there, and it was inspiring and it was fun, but it was like, where does that go? That Peter Pan life, you know, like, and festivals kind of like just reinforce that it's okay to be like an endless lost kid. And I think it was good to like pull out of that tailspin and get out of the festival world. And I kind of am a little on the outskirts of that. I still see the beauty in like festivals and gatherings, but just being able to like get more clear and like less absorbed in like drinking and drugs has helped me to like see exactly like what it is that I need to do with the time that I'm here, and that life is a gift, and we're given this gift of life, and sometimes we don't want it. We just want to give it back, and we want to throw it away, and we want to kill ourselves or whatever. But I think the purpose of life is that we're given a gift, and we have to do something to pay back the gift of life by giving our gifts back to the world in some sense or some way, whether, you know, you're a singer or a poet or a dancer, like you have a gift, maybe you're a writer, and like if you can give back the gift of life before your time is up, then I feel like you can kind of like leave this world without so much like unfinished business, like why you were here. And in some senses it's even simpler, like where it's just you're here to just to love, you know, you're not even here to like do a bunch of work in this one lifetime. You're here just to love as best you can and to forgive everybody before you go, you know. So
that's a really nice thought.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, so we have like I think we have like 14 minutes before my Instagram will let us go. So let's see, you talked about style. I feel like you gave a lot of advice for artists who maybe struggle to find their style.
What about blocks? Artist blocks.
Yeah. So
how do you get past artist blocks?
That is a good one. So let's do that. So a lot of artists, I feel like, and it's like weird, like especially now I'm seeing all these artists who are like, I've got this mental block, and what advice do you have for those people who are struggling to find their muse or inspiration?
Well, it's tricky because I feel like I haven't been blocked in a really long time, but when I was younger, I used to sit at a white piece of paper and I would get really like freaked out, like, oh no, what do I draw? Do I do a human anatomy? Am I trying to figure out comics? And one thing you can do when you're blocked is just to like take the pencil and you just move it around. But you start doing something. You can't not touch the pencil to the paper. You can't just sit there in fear about what you're going to do. And it doesn't matter how good it is. Like if you're blocked in a painting, start a new one, you know? If you're blocked in a painting, paint over it. Paint something over it. Say you're just tired of looking at it. You don't know where it's going. Just splash some paint on it and move the paintbrush around and just ruin it because it's not going anywhere. So going forward is better than being stuck going nowhere. And I think that that's a really important thing to do. and I ruin a lot of my paintings because I'm just stuck on it. I don't know what it is. It doesn't make me happy. There's no joy in it. So I think that once something's joyless and you're done with it, then if you try to sit there and fix it or fuss with it, like I feel like you just stay in that state. Whereas if you paint over it, you liberate yourself and you're like, yeah, fuck, that was like 80 hours of work and I just went all over it and I didn't care. And and then you start something new and it becomes more intriguing and beautiful and you actually want to paint on it, compared to like being stuck on something and like not knowing, you know, why you're even in that space of like not knowing how to go forward. So another thing is like if you're stuck in your own thoughts and you don't know what to do, you know, study styles of art. Like look at a video of like how to paint a landscape, how to paint a figure. There's all kinds of tutorials, and just like study outside of like what you're comfortable doing, which might be like just doing abstract paintings. What if you try doing a figurative painting and you're not that good at it? Well, I think that we got to start like we got to get into what we're not good at, because that's where we grow the most. Like if we stay in our lane and just do that one thing that we're really good at, then we're never going to progress beyond like our comfortable lane that we're told to stay in. And I just don't like that phrase.
There's science behind that too. There's science behind like if you do something different than your normal routine or whatever, that's when creativity like starts to like flow a little bit better and like loosen up. Like there's actual science behind that. Like if you drive home a different way, same as if you like try something that you're not used to, that will help your creative muscles in your brain like work better. So yeah, I think
that
it's really good advice.
Just by painting and 20 minutes into painting and doing something for 20 minutes, you'll tap into the flow state. But if you don't even attempt to start, you'll be stuck in the fear state and not know where to go and not know what to do. And you'll be looking at Facebook and it's talking about Corona and it's doing this and this person messaged me. So then you've got to tune all that out and like, you know, put your phone away and just work for 20 minutes and then see if you still feel like working after that. And you might lose track of time in 20 minutes and you'll be like, oh no, like where did the time go? And like, oh, look what I'm doing now. And I think inspiration finds you when you're working. It doesn't find you before you started working though. That's what I noticed.
So that's really good advice too. Just like, that are very good point. Like it'll find you if you're doing like this banana guy or girl, Banana Amanda, was saying like, do something. She really, or whoever that is, the things are so small, really liked when you said that.
Nice.
Do something.
You know, I've been trying not to read the comments because I'm not sure if I was supposed to be reading that too.
No, that's what I'm for. I'll help with that. Yeah.
You handle that.
I do think it's cool. Just so Exist Vibrantly. That is Caitlin. She's an artist at the gallery, and she's like helped me a lot with different stuff. She is working on getting her doctorate right now. So she said what we were talking about is called neuroplasticity. I just feel like that's something cool for people to know about later on. That's the name of working out your creative muscles, I'm assuming. Yeah. Cool. Well, before this cuts us off, let's tell people who maybe don't know and who will be watching this later, just again that who you are and maybe how they can support you at this time. So we're talking with Gabriel Welch right now, and you can find him on Instagram if you don't already have his Instagram handle. It's Omeka1 or Omeka_1 spelled out O-N-E. Omeka, sorry. And also you can find him like I've been able to find you by searching your name too on Instagram. It'll pull up your title
Right.
or your handle. But and in your profile, you have a link to your website. Is there other
Yeah,
ways that people can support you? You want to
I have
talk about that?
I have a store. It's omeka1.com. It's a clothing store, and I'm working on the website gabrielwelch.com. Um, I'm a little I'm a little behind on like organizing like works for sale, or I'm starting to get prints available again, but it's just taking me a lot of work to like, wear all these hats. But
I
I
get
did
it.
just like do like a print release not too long ago. So I'm going to work on like making things more streamlined in that sense, but for right now I'm doing like a drop
Okay.
ship clothing thing where you could just go to omeka1.com, order like a hoodie or a t-shirt, and then it gets printed and then shipped to you, and then I don't have to be that middleman doing all that
Right.
too. So
That's what places
that's
like
been really
us are
nice,
for.
like doing that. And the prints I'm doing them where like I get a small number of prints made and kind of like just do it to where you'd have to just contact me directly to get a print. But
So follow
hopefully in the
you, keep up
future.
with
What's
that
that?
flow. So people can follow you and kind of keep up with that flow and stuff too, to
Yeah.
see different, just random things like that. Well, we do have, and at Spectra, we've been working on cleaning up our online shop a lot. And one of the big collections that I had to clean up was your, the Welsh Brothers collection. But you have a lot of, and I'm working on getting a lot of those prints because people were buying them in person, but now we're trying to like shift everything to being like a virtual gallery
Oh,
because we
right.
don't know how long we have to be closed.
Uh-huh.
But some of your tapestries and prints and stuff are on our website too. And if you guys want to watch Gabriel teach a really awesome class, that's on our website too. Happy Trees.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. So I guess with the last 5 minutes, I have a question from somebody who took your class.
Okay.
Do you want to see if you can?
Yeah.
So this is from somebody who commented on the YouTube link after they had purchased the Happy Trees class, and his name is Lucas. He said, and this was just like a week ago. So he said, "Thanks for your video. I'd love to see you picking up paint with a brush. Do you use any medium or just pure color from the paper?" And I guess it should be clarified that he was using acrylic for this class. So yeah, do you use any medium or just color from the
Yeah, I
paper?
use let's see. I like to use like a matte gloss, or sometimes matte, sometimes gloss, like glaze medium. So it's like a medium. I like the matte best though because it doesn't make it shiny.
Mm,
So after you work a whole layer of painting, like at some point you should give the whole thing a wash, and that's using like uh, a matte glaze. And what happens is you wash the whole painting in a glaze. Sometimes you can put color into it if you want to change the tint of the whole painting. Um, so you wash the whole thing with a glaze. You put it to the side. You let it dry. And when you come back, like all the darks are a little more subdued, and the highlights are more subdued. So then when you come back on top of it with white paint, it pops on top of the previous white paint that you painted. So you can add highlights on top of highlights. And it makes everything go down to like a single like layer. It's kind of like saving a layer. Like you work it, it gets real crazy or whatever. Put a wash on it, and then you can come back to it and add like deep pockets of dark because now the darks are kind of like a little bit hazier than they used to be. So you can darken pockets and you can lighten things, and then if you get to another point, put another wash on it. But another thing that um, I think they might be asking about is I made a solution of like there's like a slow like dry medium that I got off Nova Color, and then there's like a retarder, and then you mix them
mm-hmm.
together, and it makes like a thick kind of solution that you can use to like slow down the drying time of acrylic. and that could be really,
It's a nice thing to have in your toolbox as a
yeah,
acrylic painter for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that could be.
I could post that in like a story or something sometime if you wanted to know the two things that you mix together to create the slower drying medium. And then you mix that with your paint so that when you're painting with acrylic, it gives you like an extra like minute of drying time because it slows the drying down. So
Which is kind of why, I don't know, this is just like a personal thing, but I remember, because I was like an oil painter for a really, really long time. And I remember people, like a lot of artists that I was meeting in the like live painting circuit were like, I don't like oil, it dries too slow and whatever. I'm like, that's why I love it.
I know. I love oil too for that reason. I'm
Because it's
working on
so just
like
like smooshy.
I'm working on like 20 different oil paintings right now. And the great thing about working on so many paintings is that as soon as you get stuck, you just put it to the side, you work on something else. You learn a lot in like a couple weeks, and then you come back to that oil painting and you instantly can just like jump in and fix whatever it is because you've gone to some other realms, and then you take those realms back into these realms. I think it's really fun to like constantly be working on 50 paintings, you know. Otherwise, you're just kind of stuck working on one piece, and you get really in your head about it and what it needs and what it doesn't. What did you mess it up? And